Thank you, Reverend Mary. Hello, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you tonight. Most of you know me as Reverend Glenn. I also publish using my full name, Glenn Stewart Coles. And tonight's talk is called God, the Universe, and You. When I was 11 years old, on my 11th birthday, I got a remarkable gift. It was a telescope. Now, at that time, I was already really involved with the concept of outer space. You know, there was the astronauts. There was an astronaut named John Glenn. And of course, hearing that kind of set my lifelong desire. I wanted to be an astronaut. And then, of course, shortly after that, there was the landing on the moon in the summer of 1969. So here I am, 11 years old. I've got my own telescope. And looking back, it wasn't really that good a telescope. You know, if you looked at a star as a dot in the sky, well, the telescope made it a bigger dot. You couldn't really see much, but you could see the details on the moon. You could see the craters on the moon. So it still allowed me to reach out a bit further into space. I was very disappointed in July of 1969 when I looked through my telescope at the moon and I couldn't see Neil Armstrong. I couldn't see the Apollo spacecraft. And I had fully expected that once I looked through my telescope, I can watch them walking around on the moon. But I was only 11. Well, a few years later, when I was 14, I remember lying on the dock at the cottage with my friend Jerry. And at the cottage, of course, there's less light than the city, which means there was 10 times as many stars in the sky. And I remember lying back, looking up at the sky, looking at all the stars, and just contemplating the meaning of life. And at age 14, of course, we had our philosophies, and my philosophies have changed ever since. Well, for an old geeky telescope buff from childhood, this week's been a very exciting week because the James Webb Telescope has started sending back images. And to give you a bit of history, in 1989, the Hubble telescope was launched up into space and provided for us images that were better than we'd ever seen before. And for the past 33 years or 32 years, the Hubble telescope has been providing us constant new information about space. Well, when they launched that in 1989, the scientists at NASA started planning the next one. They knew the Hubble telescope would eventually wear out. So what do we want in our next telescope? What's important? What did we miss? What extras did we want? And so on. And for the past 30 years, they have been developing this vision of what they would see as the most amazing telescope ever. And it finally launched on Christmas Day of 2021. And it took 6 months to travel out 1.5 million kilometers out into a non-gravitational spot in space where it can just simply hang in space and start gathering light and information from beyond our solar system. James Webb was the name of the man who ran NASA from 1961 to 1968. So basically, when the whole space program was getting going with the Mercury astronauts and the Gemini and then the Apollo astronauts, James Webb was in charge of all that. So they have named this telescope after him. Well, I'm going to share my screen and show you a picture. Could I get a thumbs up? Is that coming across well? Perfect, thank you. So that is one of the pictures that was returned by the James Webb telescope. And in the description of this picture, it points out and it says, okay, the area of sky covered by this photograph is equivalent to you holding up a grain of sand at arm's length, and the amount of sky blocked out by the grain of sand is what's in this photograph. Now, even that is amazing, because you think about it, well, that grain of sand, look at the whole sky around it, there's a million times that grain of sand. And imagine that this picture that we're seeing here of hundreds and hundreds of stars is only a very minuscule part of our sky. Imagine if we had the depth of vision to see that much in all directions. It would almost like being inside one of those shaking snow toys where you shake it and there's all the things floating around. That's what our universe looks like out there. And we can't see it, obviously, because our atmosphere blocks a lot of the light that comes in. But if you look at this and figure, okay, that's the amount covered by a grain of sand, well, we start to zoom in and you see that there's more stars in every area. As we zoom in, it gets deeper and there's more and more stars. So what I did was I looked at this little area here, this red square that I've marked up at the top. So I cut out that red square and zoomed in, and this is the picture that came from that. So again, the amount covered by a grain of sand, I've taken a little tiny square off of that and zoomed in. And let's look at this picture. What is that? That's a galaxy. That's a whole galaxy, just like the Milky Way. There's 100 million stars in that galaxy. And it is that minuscule little dot up in that little tiny picture. And if I point it out now, the galaxy is up in there. So if you think about it, so 100 million stars, 100 million suns. Some of those suns have planets. Some of those planets have life. The immensity, the amount of knowledge, the idea that we're the only intelligent life in this universe. Imagine what a waste of space it would be to have a galaxy with 100 million stars and no intelligent life. It just makes sense. There's something going on in that galaxy. And as you look around, there's another galaxy there and another galaxy there and another galaxy there. Life is everywhere across this universe. So imagine there is a planet. Imagine we can zoom in on that galaxy. And we go in and we see the planet and we see the humanoids that are living on that planet. And the first question we ask them is, what do you think of God? On that galaxy so far away, how do they define God? Well, if you look back at our planet, you realize that we do not have one singular accepted definition of God. We actually have 8 billion definitions of God. We each have our own story. If we were each asked that question, how do you define God? Every one of our answers would be different. There may be similarities, but each one of us has come up with a personal story to define God that we are comfortable with. And it came to my realization that it is not the definition of God that matters, but the outcome of your definition. Does your definition of God give you faith? Does your definition of God give you uplifting enlightenment and empowerment? Because if it does, it's serving its purpose. Now, as we look at that big picture of the universe, we start to look at the 7 principles of spiritualism and which ones address what we just saw. And the first is the presence of a loving and universal source. Well, when you look out the window, it goes on forever. We are right in the middle of a universal source. There's no questioning that there is more and more and more beyond our capacity to even imagine. We have a hard time imagining 1 million miles, much less a billion light years. The spiritualist principles remind us that God is expressed through all nature. Now, when I first think of that, I think of walking out into the forest and hugging a tree and listening to the birds and feeling the sun on my face. That's how I would define nature. But I realize that that's a very small, narrow definition. Is the God that provides the nature of the forest outside my house, is it a different God that overlooks the Grand Canyon? Is it a different God that overlooks the Great Barrier Reef? Think about it. God is all powerful. No. God is all powerful and all everything. So nature is everything on the planet, everything on earth. But is the God here different from the God on another planet? If someone were living on Mars, would they have a different God than the God we have here? No, God is the creator of all. God extends beyond Earth and beyond our human experience to be the creator of everything. And if there is that galaxy a few billion light years away from here, is their God a different God than our God? No, God is the creator of all. One big ultimate life force that envelops everything. The numbers are stupendous. When we look at that galaxy, the estimate is its distance from Earth is about 5 billion light years. Well, let's put that in perspective. The age of the Earth is estimated to be 4.5 billion years. So the light that was photographed by the telescope of that distant galaxy, that light was first emitted before Earth existed. And through the entire existence of Earth, that light has been traveling towards us to finally get here now for us to be able to receive it. 5 billion light years. So if you think of the entire history of our planet and you think of the history of mankind, our recorded history is maybe 3,000 years old. You go back to the ancient Egyptians or some of the ancient civilizations. If you look at how humanity has developed in 200 years ago, flight was not possible. Engines were not possible. People walked and they took horseback and buggies to get places. That was just 200 years ago. 50 years ago, everything was different. And we're evolving at a tremendously accelerated pace right now on this planet. But if you look at the distance of time, it's just a mere scratch, just a dimple in the big picture of everything that is. So given that it's all so big, it's all beyond our capacity, where does that leave us? That leaves us with our power within. You are the center of your universe. As you turn around, you see all angles of the universe from your perception, everything that comes out from you. And you are personally responsible for the creation of your own reality through thought, word, and deed. So as a little tiny blip in an immensely oversized universe, you make a difference because you have the ability through willingness and intent to shine your light. You have that ability to raise your vibration. You have that ability to influence and affect others and to help raise their vibration. It all comes from within. Now, yesterday I was helping counsel a woman who shall remain anonymous. I will say that nobody in this group knows her. But she wrote something, her feelings on Saturday morning. Here's kind of how she felt about herself. And she wrote, "I'm a weird, overweight loser who tried to be popular in high school. I am ugly, fat, and friendless. Why do I think this way? I think it's voodoo. Nothing has gone right in my life, and it's just getting worse. If I become obese, I swear the outcome won't be pretty. That's what she wrote. That's what her thoughts were as she had her morning coffee. That's how she felt. Now, as an outsider, as an observer, we can look at that and realize that so much of what she wrote is self-hatred. So much of what she wrote expresses her pain, but also her lack of self-esteem. And if she's walking around thinking, nobody likes me, I'll never make any friends, and the only thing they see is someone who is ugly and fat. If you're thinking that, what are you attracting into your life? You get what you give. So if you're walking around hating yourself, hating your position in life, hating your body, hating your background, whatever it is about yourself that you don't like, if you are continually emphasizing that, what you're doing is you're bringing more of that into your life. Where we have our power is in redirecting that. Instead of saying, I'm going to look for things that I don't like, I choose to look for things that I do like. I choose to look for things where I can express gratitude. I look for things that I'm thankful for. Simplest things. The chirp of a robin brings me joy. But only because I allow it to, only because I've created that scenario where hearing that bird sing is a joyful experience. I've created that for myself. I've created that response. And you as an individual have tremendous influence on the responses that you create. And if the responses that you are creating through your intentions and through your choice of focus, if your response is to shine and glow, two things happen. Number one, you share that with other people. They feel it. People feel when you're happy. People feel when you're shining and glowing. You can tell when someone walks into the room and they're having a good day because they shine. So if you shine, you have that influence on others. And then secondly, what happens is it acts like a magnet. So when you're someone who shines, what comes into your environment? People that are shining or people that want to shine. You get what you give. The evolution of mankind is essential. And we look at the turmoil in the world right now and all the things that are going on with the politics and the economy and the different countries and the wars and the food shortages and all, gas prices, all these things are going wrong. What do we need most? What do we need most as a species? And I believe what we need most is to learn how to live harmoniously with each other and with our planet. Can you imagine if Earth contained 8 billion people who were all willing to help each other get along, who were all supportive of each other's success, and who worked together to make sure that our planet was clean, healthy, and thriving? Can you imagine the outcome of that focus? We would be creating heaven on earth. We could feed everybody. We could have the most beautiful planet possible if we learn how to live harmoniously with each other and with our planet. And it's very easy to feel defeated, to look out there and go, oh, that'll never happen. There's always people out there that are hateful and so on and so on. And the answer is, you don't control other people, you control you. And as you control you, if you choose, I am going to be an entity that lives harmoniously with others and with my planet. And that's what you continually shine. It expands, it accelerates. And once 8 billion of us are doing that, we're on track. But it starts with each of us. It starts by each of us, by consciously raising our vibration, by opening our third eye, by opening our awareness, opening our connection, our willingness to see things, our willingness to learn things, our willingness to say, hey, everything I've learned may not be true. What else is there? And as we go through and encourage that evolution within ourselves, we also encourage that evolution with others, and so on and so on. Eventually, we can make Earth one of the most shining planets in this entire universe that they all want to watch and see how we do. We're only a spot in the universe. Our success or failure is solely our responsibility. We must learn to live harmoniously with each other and with our planet. To do this, we must evolve one by one, then all of us. The survival of our species means changing our way of being. And that is the logical answer I got from seeing that far distant galaxy and realizing how much there is out there. It all falls back to us and what we can do here. May your path be glowing and successful. And so it is.